Why is everyone moving to Nashville? It's something that a lot of people might be asking. I wonder sometimes. We have about 100 people a day who have been moving in to the greater Nashville area for probably at least a decade now, and that number hasn't slowed down. In fact, it kind of picked up pace during COVID, but now it's leveled off to be back to that 100 people a day estimate, and that includes greater Nashville, which is the counties surrounding Davidson County. The county line for Davidson County is the Nashville city limits, but you have Sumner County, Cheatham County, Williamson County, Rutherford County, Wilson County, so many other counties that actually touch borders with Davidson County that are consistent of Middle Tennessee and the greater Nashville area. I notice when I go on vacation sometimes, or I go visit somewhere outside of town and people ask me where I'm from, when I say Nashville, Tennessee, their eyes light up. They love hearing about Nashville. They love talking about Nashville, and almost everyone seems to have a good experience from being in Nashville, Tennessee. So it's not surprising to know that a good experience might equal a good quality of life living here. And so let's talk about the top 6 reasons that I think people are gravitating toward Nashville, Tennessee. I'm Erika Kurre, and my family loves living here. My husband and I moved here about 18 years ago, expecting to only stay for a couple of years, and we ended up staying for a lot longer, gave up the careers that moved us here so that we could stay here and be happier and raise our children here, live our lives here as a long-term investment in our quality of life. And that leads me to number 1, quality of life. That's the reason we're here right now. When my husband and I first moved here early on in our marriage, we moved here just as a quick stop, and it really became clear to us that for us to get a better quality of life, we might not really like our jobs as much, or to get better jobs, we might have to sacrifice on quality of life. We were not willing to do that. We were not willing to chase our careers to other cities like Chicago or New York, even California, to live somewhere we maybe didn't like as much just because we were taking a step up in our careers. I actually had a job interview. I had several interviews in Chicago at one point, and I had several interviews along the West Coast of the United States. And I would go visit those places and just know immediately, regardless of how the job interview turned out, I knew right away those weren't the places I wanted to live. They didn't have my vibe, and the things that were important to me, I just didn't feel like it meshed in my soul with the lifestyle and the life that I had in mind. Here in greater Nashville, though, we have so many cool amenities that you might find in a lot of larger cities, but you still have the small hometown feel. We have so many parks, recreation, there are opportunities for hiking, for biking, for swimming, for walking, to see some amazing scenery in your everyday life when you're out with a friend or you're walking or you're doing some of your exercising. And at the same time, there's entertainment outside of that as well. Obviously, so many people know about Lower Broadway, and that is where the honky-tonks are and where a lot of the nightlife is in Nashville. But even in some of our areas outside of downtown Nashville, we have festivals, we have events, we have community events, we have songwriters nights, we have all sorts of concerts in parks around here. There are so many different events and activities that are happening in and around this greater Nashville area that really help feed into the quality of life, places you can take your children, places you want to hang out with or without children, and just really feel like you're getting embedded in the community and getting out of it what you want to put into it. There are so many people around here who love water sports. Obviously, so many clubs and community rec centers for swimming and that type of thing, but also we are surrounded by so many lakes and rivers that it provides a lot of opportunity for boating and recreation along those lines. And as it turns out, our weather here is so pleasant for the majority of the year. Sure, in the summertime, it is so hot and humid, but what better things to do on a hot and humid day than water sports? So we have probably about 6-7 months out of the year where you could be in the water doing water sports and activities, and we really only have a few months out of the year where it's cold or maybe not as seasonally appropriate to do things like that. And that leads me to point number 2, our weather. Now, I might have a lot of people who debate me on whether or not weather is worth moving here to Greater Nashville, because we do have severe weather during severe weather season, which is usually in the spring. Tornadoes can be somewhat of a concern, and it is typical for us to have tornado warnings a couple times every spring. I personally, in 18 years, have not encountered or been in the middle of a tornadic situation. But obviously, that is something that you always have to be alert of, you always have to be aware of, because there's always an opportunity for a first time. However, the rest of the seasons, we have a beautiful spring despite our occasional tornadic warnings. We have a lot of rain in the springtime. We have a dry summer for the most part, dry and humid. In the fall, it's absolutely gorgeous with all of our foliage, our leaves changing colors. We have a variety of species of trees and plants and everything that in the different various seasons around the year, we have difference in colors and in greenery and just the fullness of our vegetation around here, which really just with every season change, it's different. And it really is a sight to behold for the majority of our year here in Nashville, Tennessee. Of course, we have winter as well, and it does get cold here. We have a few times a year where it might snow, mostly between the months of January and February. Once we get past the first week in March, we usually don't have much in the way of cold weather again. That's usually when we start merging into spring, but we do have a legitimate spring. We have a legitimate summer, we have a legitimate fall, and a legitimate winter. And I will tell you, personally speaking, that is one of the things that my husband and I have appreciated most probably about living here in Middle Tennessee is our 4 seasons. We came from Northeast Ohio initially, and in Ohio, it felt like 6 to 7 months of the year is winter time. Just when you think it's springtime, there's another 3 feet of snow. Just when you think that 3 feet of snow is melted and it's time for spring, there's another 3 feet of snow. It's not like that here in Nashville. And same note in Alabama. I once lived in southern Alabama, and it was the same thing where we felt like it was 9 months of the year summertime, no fall, just like a couple few days of very cold weather in the winter, and then it's back to summertime again, no spring. So after living in those 2 extremes, we really have found a happy place here in Middle Tennessee with our weather. I've started helping people from across the country, not just in the typical areas like Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, but we have a lot of people coming here now from Florida because of the hurricanes and the high insurance rates down there due to that crazy weather that they have been experiencing. So we have some families now moving from other places where weather's not as desirable. And I don't really know that there is a place, to be honest with you, where I would be happy living weather-wise, because in my opinion, there is not a perfect weather scenario. I know a lot of people in California talk about the sunshine tax, but still for me, I appreciate having all 4 seasons, legitimate snow on the ground in winter, spring, fall, and then summer, a warm summer. And so I've found the best of all worlds right here in Middle Tennessee. Housing options. We have so many homes around here now that are for sale and for rent. We really have had a moment in our market where our inventory is starting to catch up to what we saw in 2019. So getting back to those normal pre-pandemic levels is something that we've been looking forward to now for 5 years. And really back in 2019, inventory was low for us here. So just to get up to what was once the old normal low is now feeling more and more almost like an excess. And so we have a lot of housing market options right now, variety of price ranges. A lot of people are attracted to this housing market because of so many locations. You have an opportunity to find your vibe where you might fit in around here in Greater Nashville, but also a lot of variety in price points and really options in the houses and the styles that you can find as well. We have older 100-year-old, 150-year-old homes from the Great Opry establishment era. We have brand new homes, so much new construction still happening around here, but then we also have the homes in neighborhoods that were maybe built 20, 30 years ago, and they have just a variety of character. And that's one of the things I hear about from so many people who come to me from out of state is they want to live in a place that is affordable, that aligns with their family values, where they feel like they might fit in, but also it's not cookie cutter. Not cookie cutter is a big specification that so many people come to me with their criteria. And I can tell you there are so many neighborhoods around here that have been established over phases and developments and by different developers and builders that the homes don't look alike and they have character. And so that is an option here as well. Another thing that goes in line with our housing options here is we have so many families now who are moving their friends, their grandparents, aunts and uncles, even retirees who are either following their children or they're moving and their children follow them. And because of that, it is so important to have a variety of price points and options, because you might have different stages of life in one family that you're trying to move across the country. And I can tell you Nolensville, for example, is a really good option for people like this, because you have 3 counties there that Nolensville is part of: Williamson, Rutherford, and Davidson counties. So for families who have children and you want your children in Williamson County schools, well, you can have a slice of that in Nolensville, but you might have grandparents who they don't really mind so much about the school system. What's most important to them is probably a more affordable pricing for their fixed incomes. So they can buy a home very close in the same town, but over a county line, to give them that difference in what they're looking for that suits their needs the most. Cost of living. So you have probably noticed that when you're around here, you might not spend as much money to go to the store as what you maybe used to where you live. For example, I once visited my sister in Connecticut one time. I was blown away because we took a trip to Target one day, and just for essentials. At the time my children were little, we were still in diapers, we had to buy some baby items, and I was shocked at the difference in price at my sister's Target for some of those essentials that I was so used to buying down here in Middle Tennessee, because the price was at least double what it was that I'm used to paying here in Greater Nashville. Of course, prices everywhere have gone up since my children were in diapers. But what we're seeing too, though, is as much as they've gone up here, they've gone up in Connecticut, they've gone up in New York, they've gone up in Texas, they've gone up everywhere else too. So in the big picture, Nashville can have a lot easier cost of living because we don't really have the prices that rival some of these other larger metro areas. Taxes have a lot to do with that. Our sales taxes can be comparable, for other areas. Our sales taxes are in the 9% range. And the reason that is because we look at it as our tourists being able to help us help maintain our infrastructure and pay for the things that ordinarily in other places property tax might help pay for, or income tax. But here in Greater Nashville, our property taxes are a lot lower. We have a very much smaller base for taxes on our property taxes. And when people come here, they are shocked to learn that the prices we pay annually are not, in fact, monthly taxes. I have a set of clients who are moving here from actually out of the United States. They're coming from the UK. And when they looked at the property taxes for an area they're searching in Brentwood, they had to clarify with me that this wasn't a monthly fee, that it was indeed spread out annually. And it was the truth. The tax amount that they were looking at was an annual fee that a lot of places everywhere else, not just in the United States, but around the world, might be used to being a monthly fee. So that's a huge thing that for a lot of people, I don't know how your incomes might compare to where you're working compared to where you would be working here, but to have so much more money that you're keeping in your pocket makes you feel like you're getting a really big raise. And businesses feel this advantage as well. Businesses come here because they're able to figure out the employment factors that make it worth their bottom line. If you're self-employed, you're going to notice a huge difference as well in your take-home pay. We have a lot of other corporations though. Vanderbilt University Medical Center is our largest employer, employing about 25,000 people. But we are consistently seeing in the news other corporations moving into this area. We have a lot of corporate headquarters here. We have some manufacturing facilities as well, but for the most part, we have a lot of the white-collar executives who are moving into this area because their headquarters are bringing them here, because it just makes sense for so much of the bottom line, both personally and professionally. And this brings me to point number 5, which is jobs and education. So many people are attracted to the greater Nashville area because of jobs and education. We have so many opportunities here for employment. Our biggest employment sectors are finance. We have entertainment, of course, as you would guess, medical industry, and it's just a really big hub around here for tech as well. Those are our 4 big houses of where a lot of people are employed, where a lot of our money is made here in greater Nashville. And so we have so many people moving here because their companies are either moving here or because they're moving here because of the opportunities these companies provide. And then when you pair it with the education system that we have here, we have so many good opportunities for children's education. We've got not only the private schools around here, so many private schools to choose from, but we also have some pretty good public school systems as well. My children are in a public school system because I honestly don't believe they would get any better of an education being elsewhere. But it is a family by family choice. We have a few good counties around here who are known for their education system. And so a lot of where you're going to want to live might include these factors: how close you are to where your job may be, how close you want to be to your ideal school system or your ideal schools. And, we have a lot of colleges and universities as well around here. And so it is so common for so many people to raise their children around here, and then their children go to a nearby college or university right here in Nashville, may not necessarily stay living at home, but there are opportunities right here in our own backyard where we've seen our friends of ours who have grown up, gone to college, and still come back living in the same neighborhood because they love it so much around here. So that's a huge reason too why so many people target Nashville, Tennessee. You want to live in a place where your kids ultimately might want to come home to. And one of the biggest notes of feedback that I get from people about why they want to be here is, let's just be honest, the people are just nicer. Everyone gets along a little better, it seems here. I don't feel so much of the attitude and get so much of the attitude around here that I pick up on when I go to visit other larger cities across the country. Citing my sister living in Connecticut, for example. There are so many times where I have seen people give attitude to a grocery store clerk, or especially during COVID, people walking to the beach or pushing each other out of the way and, fighting over parking spots. And that's not a typical thing here. People here are on a much smaller vibe, that much slower pace, much just lower scale of intensity and anxiety. And that's not to say it doesn't exist here. It does. But it's just a different feeling that gives, I guess, a little bit of relief and hopefully a little bit of a sense of welcoming as well. Our politics have so much to do with what is happening around here, what's going on around the country. And as you know, this is really a sticky topic for a lot of people. But when I have clients with me, and one of the main things they tell me in our first conversations, reasons they want to move here to Tennessee, is because of our politics. This is very much of a conservative state. We do have pockets of blue in our larger cities. Memphis is a very blue vote area. Greater Nashville in general is not, but downtown, the city of Nashville, is typically leans blue. Knoxville, same idea there. But everywhere else across the state is red. And that is pretty much a typical pattern, I think, for across the country too. You'll see this pattern with a lot of cities across the country versus the more rural areas. But outside of these cities here in Tennessee, everyone for the most part is a little more conservative leaning when it comes to politics. But I will tell you, I don't really feel like there is a whole lot of conversation about it here. It's not one of those things that people are really braggy about. People aren't really trying to put it in your face or change anyone's mind. You are more apt to see people holding open the door. You are more apt to seeing people smile and nod, even if you give an opinion that is not similar to theirs. A lot of people are going to yes ma'am, no ma'am. And I have to tell you about a story from when I was living in Southern Alabama for the first time after living in Northeast Ohio and then Washington, D.C. I lived on the Hill in D.C. and then moved straight from there down to Alabama. And that was my first experience ever living really anywhere in the South. And I had interns at my first job who would yes ma'am, yes ma'am, yes ma'am me all the time. And they spoke slower, they moved slower. And so my general impression of them was maybe they were typically just slower. Just overall thinking, overall speaking. And I came to conclude that I don't think that was necessarily the case. It just was not something that I was used to, and I didn't really know how to explain it. I was only in my 20s, and these kids were talking to me as though I was a 40, 50-year-old woman, and I was not. And so I did come to learn over the years that that's just a cultural thing. That is to show respect. That is to be respectful to others. That is to be kind. It is to show that you mean to be friendly. And it's really nothing more than that to read into that. But, you know, as we have now had our children in the South and we're raising them in the South, we're raising them to say, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. And it's just sort of become a standard for us and our family. And we want our children to speak respectfully to other adults and acknowledge, you know, and have conversation where they can talk to them and know that we put emphasis on respect. And I think that is something that you're very much going to see across the South. Don't be surprised if you're in the grocery store and a random stranger waves at you or says hi to you. I was showing homes the other day and one of my clients was really wowed because as we were standing out in the driveway, someone walked by with their dog and waved to them and started asking them if they're moving in and wanted to meet them. And we hadn't even put an offer in on the house yet. So they were just very impressed by that because where they were coming from, that's typically not something that they're used to. And I know things like these might be a little uncomfortable for some people just because it's a different place, it's a different culture, it's a different way of life down here, but it's not necessarily anything that I think most people are opposed to. It's just you're not used to it. When you're not used to it, you don't really know how to interpret it a lot of times, just like I was saying for my Alabama story. So these are the top 6 reasons why I love living here in Middle Tennessee in the greater Nashville area, why I think you might as well. And if you think that this might be something that sounds good to you, you might fit in here and you might really like just taking life down a notch, reach out to me. Let me know if you have any plans to come here to Middle Tennessee, and I'd love to meet with you. I'd love to show you around and show you some of your options. In the meantime, please like, share, and comment on this video. I am accepting new clients and would love to help you.